Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of Positional Play for Anfield Index. Dear God, it's all going off today as we sit here on Wednesday, the 6th of August, 5:30 in the afternoon, not the usual time. I feel like, how you put this, one of those weird, shitty drive time DJs who sort of takes you home when you're in traffic and you're just trying to get there as fast as possible. But we'll try and bring a bit of a different vibe to that. I'm your normal host, Dave Davis, coming to you from as sunny as buggery, Edinburgh, to be honest. I've got the blinds down and there's still sun beaming through, which we shouldn't complain about at this time of year. Fingers crossed, wherever you are in the world, it is nice and the sun is shining on the righteous. Even if you ain't, to be honest, Christ, there's plenty you want to talk about with Liverpool right now. I mean, look at this. Just got going. And this is in the chat panel from Yanis. Jota, Diaz, Nunes, Chiesa played more than 4,800 minutes in the Premier League alone. Assuming Rio gets a few hundred minutes, we need one more forward in addition to Ekitike. Yanis, we're going to be talking about forwards and minutes. We're going to be talking about quotes from former players, to be honest, at the same time. We're going to be talking about youngsters and the impact they'll have. Also rivals and who we might be pinching players off. And before anyone panics, of course, we will talk about the saga. I think it's okay to say saga a little bit with Alexander Isak and everything around that, isn't it? Plenty to get through, plenty to discuss. And my new toy's on the screen, so I'm just enjoy playing with this at the same time as well. So what's first up on the docket, ladies and gents? The midfield scenario. Who, when, all of them, youngsters. There's quite a few things in the mix. And the player to start with isn't even really a senior player, but he is now set to be a first-team squad member. If there's any doubt about that, I'll kind of point you towards the tweet that Paul Joyce put out last night, where he said, as Tyler Morton leaves, Trey Nyoni, 18, is being considered as a full-time member of Liverpool's first-team setup following a strong pre-season, which continued against Athletic Bilbao, or Club Athletic, as they prefer to be known. Now, here's the thing about young Trey. Obviously, in this game, he was centre-back, wasn't he? Alongside Andy Robertson in the first one of the two, however you wish to phrase it. But we're talking about him in the midfield positions, which is crazy competitive. And even with all that, I know there's like me and many others will start to say in the chat panel, we need one more in that midfield. And that's what probably we're going to talk about a little bit around rankings and who's most suitable. Now, on the board right now, and I got jumped at almost for this last time, in the two double pivot spots are Dominic CalvertLewin and Alexis McAllister. And people jumped to last time, well, where's Grav? Well, this board was set up for the first day of the season, as in Bournemouth at home, for which Ryan Gravenberch is suspended. So let's just keep that in mind. But with that in mind, I did want to talk about who's the flavour, who's going to be rotated, who's going to be the starter and all that. And people, it's easy just to say horses for courses. And of course, who's fit, keeping them fresh. But it never just works that way simply, does it? The two on the pitch, Alexis McAllister, first of all, let's be clear. I'm not really concerned with other opinions on this. For me, the best midfielder in the Premier League. Alexis McAllister has to be in Liverpool's starting 11. He's the best passer in midfield. He's the best all-round player. The only thing you would wish from Alexis McAllister is he is diesel rather than petrol-powered, isn't he? Top pace just isn't there. And Mia, you're asking me why I have 12 on the field because I was dragging Trey on to illustrate that. But this is kind of the point we can't get distracted, people, of what we're trying to talk about. But for me, Alexis McAllister, first name on the team sheet in the midfield area. As with Gravenberch being suspended, I've got Dominic CalvertLewin here at the number 8. And I thought he had a great game against Bilbao in that second one. But really important to say, this is proper first world problems. There is still a little bit of a question mark against Dominic CalvertLewin. For the record, Don't just start coming for me without hearing it. He is still a player I want in the first team. I think he's crucial to Liverpool, but that doesn't mean everything's perfect with him. And as annoying as it is, there's a great piece from Sam Maguire on this in his Patron, where he actually broke down Szoboszlai at number 8 for this game and referenced Brighton last season as well. So just a few bits to pull out from what Sam Maguire put. He said, in this game, Szoboszlai was deployed in a double midfield pivot, as we know. He attempted the most passes, 82, and a pass success rate of 89. He was accurate with 80% of the long passes he attempted, while also playing 12 passes into the final third, the most of any player in this match. And I thought it was absolutely great. Absolutely great in this. You know, it's always hard to say when a player's got 8 on the back and the Gerrard comparisons, and it's never going to be exactly the same. But there was a million and one things to like from Dominic Szoboszlai in this game. However, here's also part which is absolutely true of the same game. This is what Sam wrote. Out of possession, he still worries me. Against Athletic Club, he failed to win a single tackle and he won just 43% of his ground duels. It was the same issue against Brighton last term when he was used in a deeper role and he looked non-existent in duels. Just to be clear, people, this is not remotely a criticism as saying, you know, he's a bad player. I want Dominic Szoboszlai in the starting 11. I think he is an important cog. We saw that last season at 10. Yes, Florian Wirtz has come, but for me, he is there. The slight concern that, and I'm intrigued by this, and obviously share your thoughts in the chat panel here, is the physicality there if it was McAllister and Szoboszlai. What I mean by that is, think back to that Carabao Cup final. Think back to where, unfortunately, Joe Linton, Bruno, and Tonali kind of bullied our midfield 3 at the time, didn't they, a little bit? And it's just that slight concern to me. That's the only thing you question for me against Dominic Szoboszlai. And again, best midfielder in the Premier League, Alexis McAllister. But it's right just to ask that question. So then you're thinking, well, are they first choice? Is it this? And again, horses for courses, rotation. Of course, we're going to talk about that. But I'm going to drag a few onto the pitch. So please don't panic, people, before we start talking about who, you know, shouldn't be and how many players. Grav is the obvious one. He's the potential option. Could be one of the double pivot. There could also be Curtis Jones, another rotational option at the same time. He almost... I don't know with Curtis, and as I'm saying his name, I know people will look and say, no, not for me, squad player and all this. And I think he almost has assumed that role of squad player. Just doing a little bit of digging on this week for Curtis. This is so important to say. He's got a couple of years left to go on his deal. And from doing a bit of digging at Anfield Index, the information we've got back is trying to do that renewal isn't maybe proving it as smooth as they would want, as in terms of what Curtis Jones was looking for. And I get it in that regard, because England international, homegrown, all those types of things, probably looking at parity with his midfield squad colleagues as well. That will come into the mix as well. So it is just a little bit of, as much as we're going to talk about Trey Nyoni and where he comes in, who's even your starters in midfielder? Is it just simply horses for courses in that regard? Also important to say, there's no new names in the mix, is there? There's no, you want them, Belabors, Whartons, all those types of things. Not really coming up, are they? To be honest, is what it is a little bit. However, if young Trey is in the mix, does he trump this guy here? Does he trump Wataru Endo? Is it a case of, and you could maybe dispute the rankings, but a core 4 of McAllister, Szoboszlai, Gravenberch and Curtis? Is Trey the 5th? Is Endo the 5th? Or the centre-back scenario is a little bit different to talk about. It's just a little bit unsure at the moment, isn't it, on that? Yeah, if it is Trey is in the mix as well, It's a bit like the Rio discussion, as a few mentioned. How many minutes would Trey Nyoni be worth? How many minutes do you think he'll get in central midfield? Of course, you fancy him for Carabao, FA Cup, all the, sounds terrible, but the secondary competitions, of course it is that way. But first team minutes, comfortable with Trey playing those? That's maybe the big question, isn't it? And it's funny, there's a few already in the chat pal talking about Rio and saying Rio's better than, Gakpo. These youngsters are shaking things up a little bit all round. Speaking of who they're shaking things up through, he's kind of on the edge there, unfortunately, in this diagram, Harvey Elliott. And, I mean, that came late last night, doesn't it? And even now, there's still stories that, just looking at this here, latest report, Harvey Elliott is very high on Red Bull Leipzig's shortlist, as many people are there. There's several clubs that are interested in the 22-year-old, and Spurs have been linked, but Leipzig are pushing now. And this is interesting. Elliott's already spoken with Werner and Schaefer, two directors at Red Bull Leipzig, as per the exclusive from Transfermarkt and Manuel Veth, which David Ornstein, of course, ran, so you might have seen it there. So there's a departure. Is that enough for you, though? Is that enough, then, to compete on all fronts? And we want to compete on all fronts. That core four, Trey, Endo, 5 and 6. Doesn't look like anyone's departing, does it at all? Doesn't look like, unfortunately, as many of us would want a Wharton Belabour, and I get that, anyone's coming in at the same time. John Leicester there saying, Trey reminds me a bit of Gravenberch with his frame and the way he moves. I wonder if he can play that Gravenberch position in the smaller cup competitions. Yeah, you do fancy he's going to get minutes in the double pivot. Will he be more of the, especially say the 6? I know people on Tacticals get upset when you describe it this way, so let's just keep it double pivot. It really is just hard to read. But at the moment, I think we've got to consider Trey Nyoni as a senior option. As Paul Joyce tweeted the other day, as a few other patch journalists are putting in their articles. It will be absolutely fascinating to see how that one develops.